Welcome to another episode of War Hero to Superhero, helping military veterans and first responders transform their lives from the prayer room to the boardroom. I'm your host, Daniel Faust. We are in the superhero battle room. Buttons are going to be pressed. We're going to be transformed. And the superhero battle room today is Tholin Johnson. If I hacked it, he's going to correct me because it's a name I never pronounced before. He is a man that served his country, and that says her. I accidentally misspelled. Fun being live. And now helps you to know, be, and love. And we're going to bring him to the stage to share his transformational story. Do I have you, sir?
What's Clyde? Hey, what's going on, Daniel?
All right. So we're going to go dive right into go.
And it's Tholin.
Tholin. See, I knew I hacked it.
Yeah.
I really tried. I was rehearsing through the entire thing, and I'm saying in my head, I'm like, up. So, all right. So we want to talk more about what inspired you to join the military many moons ago or many minutes ago.
All right, what inspired me to join the military was definitely it was something that was in me ever since I was a kid. So even my family, no one was surprised that I joined the military because I always felt, even at that young of an age, that I was born to lead people in a battle. So I used to play with toy soldiers. I used to play with the parachute ones. We would throw them off of buildings and jump off buildings as well with them. And I was born in the Caribbean. So I was raised in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Even there, I went to the Cub Scouts. I went to the Cadets, which was our next step of our military before coming to the States and then joining the military. So it's always been something in my blood to be in the military. So that's what I won't say it's so much an inspiration, but it was a purpose of my life, I feel like, to serve.
That's really cool. You're actually the first guest that we've had is outside the United States that came into the United States and actually became a citizen. I know tons of veterans that have come from different countries, but you're our first guest that's actually interviewed that said, hey, I wanted to come to the United States, become part of the United States military. So that's really cool. I like that.
Nice.
So because me, I just came from the States, so kind of boring,
Yeah.
So after you went over and joined, when did you leave and how long were you in? Were you in a few minutes, a few decades? Just curious, did you retire?
Yeah, it felt like a few minutes. But I was in for about 7.5 months. I was in the military, and then I got out in 2018. I got out.
So it must have been a rough transition because you had dreams of this since you were like a kid and playing with the Army soldiers and everything else. And when we get in basic training, we think like, hey, I'm going to do at least an enlistment, or I'm going to do 20 years. I thought myself, I'm going to become a chief master sergeant. That definitely did not happen. So That must have been really difficult. How did that transition go? Was it smooth? Was it at least easy, or was it difficult?
Just like you said, it was one of the biggest challenges I've ever had in my life, because I thought I was going to be in the rest of my life. So did my leaders. All right, they didn't want me to get out, so it was very tough and challenging for me. And what really happened, I did everything to set myself up to get out. Right, I had 3 jobs actually when I got out, and I really was setting myself up the best that I can, but I realized there was something else going on. Right. So backtrack, like once upon a time back in, 2017, I was in the military and life was great. This is right before I transitioned out, smooth sailing. I was married. I had a lot of friends, got my career on track, and exactly doing what I wanted to do, my lifelong dream, as I mentioned, was to be in the military the rest of my life. Then 1 year later, in 2018, swoosh, a big wave happened and my life was knocked off course. And that was inside the transition period. I had to get out of the Army, and I was going through a nasty divorce now, and I found out that I had multiple disabilities, and I was put on like 17 different meds. And I started to realize I had no real friends, and I lost focus in life. I felt like I was drowning at that point with my biggest challenge in life. So, I started hanging around the wrong people, abusing alcohol, taking part in risky behaviors, spreading the hurt, I was feeling. And only not only to others, but I was also hurting myself, right? By drinking alcohol, abusing alcohol, and just doing things that I felt like it wasn't me living out my purpose. But yet I felt so alone and anchored down in a foreign country because I was in Germany with no family, no friends, and it was pretty. I was in a pretty helpless situation. But one day,
That's
everything changed. I'm pretty. We probably get into that later.
that's a lot to go through in 7.5 months. So from the Caribbean to the United States, get recruited Army, and then like in a few months now you're in Germany, and
Hmm.
then you come to find out you're taking 17 medications. That's a lot. I'm like, I take a pill and I'm like dying inside.
Yeah,
And you're
yeah.
taking 17 medications and now figuring out like you went from like I want to be a career Army veteran to
Hmm.
going over and now I'm like a disabled veteran. Because you never see the Army soldiers in the green that you played as a kid. You know, like, oh, that one broke his leg and got 20% VA. That's a great one. That's my 100% VA disability one. I'm like,
Yeah,
I want to be that. I want to parachute and break my legs or something. You know, people
right.
don't go about that. So that's a culture shock. So it's almost like an identity crisis during that season because your identity was built from when a kid and then everything went great and then you just go in 1 year. So I don't see as a shocker of all the struggles and where your identity went because once it's gone, you got to fill it with something. And I could see that easily going towards that. So, what made you serve your current community? What made you do the pivot? Because you could have made a permanent decision to temporary problems, if you know what I mean. So, what
Hmm.
made you go over and pivot to serve to the current community?
Yeah. So one day I realized that I had to repurpose my life. All right. I was laying on the couch with an empty Wild Turkey honey bottle. I don't know if you have some Wild Turkey honey fans, but it's very smooth. But and I was disgusted because I drank this whole thing alone in the house in complete darkness, the German way, right? And I don't, I'm usually a social drinker, and that's how I knew it was now a problem for me that I drank that whole bottle alone. So I took my meds and I kept thinking about how I can die right now from being so drunk, being on meds, but I had no emotions towards that thought. Then I was like, F that, man. I can die. I can never die this way because this is not how I wanted my life to go. So I need to find a way out of this situation and not anyone else's way, but my way. So I asked myself, who the hell are you? Because I don't even know who you are anymore. And I wrote that down. I asked myself, is this who you really want to be the rest of your life? And my answer was hell no. So I wrote down who I wanted to be. And later I learned, studying psychology, that action leads to behaviors and behaviors led to character. So I realized that I needed to focus on my actions. So once I put these three together, then I am the man you see today. And you will see grow from even tomorrow. I'm a lot more intentional and purposeful with everything I do in life, all aligned to my purpose, which is simply to spread love, happiness, and peace by making people smile more, from going hopeless to hope more. So it was repurposing my life to then go and continue serving, right? My service didn't stop. I wanted to keep serving my community as well.
So it sounds like you learned the ABCs in a sense. You're talking about the actions and then the behaviors and then the character that went over and grow and everything else. So those are the ABCs that we don't get taught in
Hmm.
any mode of life until we hit the bottle. And sometimes you hit the bottle literally in the darkness.
Yeah.
So as now you're going now and you've changed your life and changed your mindset and everything else, when the tough times come, when the pressure goes over and come, what is your secret fuel that goes over that maybe we can glean off so we can grow?
And my secret fuel is realizing that sometimes we think we're being buried, but we're being planted. So just learning that alone, I looked through the whole situation that I went through, in my experience, right? I thought I had to stay in the military, getting out the military, going on drugs, right? Medication, right? Um, taking alcohol, going through everything that veterans go through when they're going through suicide, right? Health, health issues, relationship issues, and legal issues, right? Going through those three really helped me to then stop and focus on my life and be like, hey, I need to then become better. I had to realize that I had to shift. I'm no longer being who I wanted to be, and I'm not serving myself, which I want to serve others. So first, I had to serve myself. So going through these things, every situation that I ever go through, and I feel like there's pressure, I always think to myself, hey, sometimes you think you're being buried, but you're being planted. And every situation and every big challenge that I'm going through in life, I can see that there's growth in this situation. What is the opportunity that this situation is helping me to then grow? Because if I didn't go through these things that I went through in life prior to where I'm at now, I would not be who I am now to this day. So that's the big thing for me, that the secret sauce that helped me with looking at pressure.
That's really cool. It reminds me of the bamboo story, and not everybody probably knows the bamboo story, so I'm going to share it briefly with is that the bamboo, that when it gets planted, you have to water and tend it for 5 years. So it's buried in a sense for 5 years. And if you forget a day, it doesn't go over and grow, but it's planted. And when that 5 years hit, in 6 weeks, it shoots up 90 feet. You know, it's kind of funny that we always tend to think our trials are just our trials, and we think our mess is our mess, but we don't realize that the mess can be a message, the trials can be a testimony, the wounds can be wisdom, and the
Mhm.
pain can be purpose. So I thought that was a beautiful thing that you said. It's like not buried, it's being planted. And we need to look at it's like, what am I going to grow into when I'm done being underground? Because the only time we go underground 6 feet is when we are dead.
That, yes,
Other
sir.
than that, we're never buried. So
Right.
that
And
was really cool.
you just got to find your way to keep growing.
Yep. And you help others grow in ways too to go over and do
Mhm.
that. So, what superhero tactics would you give either a current client or maybe even your past self? Think
Mhm.
about yourself in the darkness in Germany about with that bottle. It actually sounds like a really good alcohol, by the way. I don't drink, but I was like, man, if I'm gonna drink, I think I would have drank that. But
Yeah.
what tactics would you give your past self,
Yeah.
or what would you give to your current clients to go over and help them to go from that survival, being buried mindset to being planted and thriving mindset?
Right. And that's the beauty in it, is finding your way. So it was the same way I find myself in what I do now as a eudaimonia strategist. I help my clients gain freedom from their biggest challenges in life, and a lot of my uh, best clients are veterans. So, and what I teach them, the tactic, I call it strategies, but I'm gonna use superhero tactic, right? Is the KBL three-way, the Nobi Love way, which is WAY, all stands for something, right? So the first one is, who are you? That's what I had to ask myself. So you write this down on a piece of paper and you ask yourself, who are you? All right. And that would help you to know yourself so you can cultivate skills like journaling or, in self inquiry, right? To get to know who you are, truly know who you are. And I tell my clients this all the time: turn the lights off, right? Turn the phones off and just go on your silent space, your safe space, and write these things down. Because when I did it, I cried, man. When I was done, I cried. And they go through the same thing, and I've seen a huge shift in my clients' lives by using the KVL three-way. So I'm gonna give it to you guys. So who are you? That will help you to get to know yourself. Who are you wanting to become? Right? And that will help you to be yourself. And then what are you going to do to become that person? And through those actions is how you're going to start to love yourself. So that's the Nobi love way.
I like that a lot. That brings identity to you. Find out there's a Greek word, no, Hebrew word called kazon. It means dream, vision, destiny. It comes out of the Old Testament Bible, and it's a really powerful book. But you've taken it and made it into like 3 steps in a sense, because you have to read a whole book, and we just got in like a few words. It's like you have to know your identity and where you want to go over and be, because when you know yourself and then you be who you truly are, and then you love yourself, then you can go serve others, and that's an outpouring. So you go from that buried to planted, and now the fruits come out and you're able to go over and serve. I like that. I really like that a lot.
Yes,
You just take an entire book that sells millions and summarize it down. You need to write yourself a book. I mean, it's not that
I've been hearing that a lot lately.
It's not that hard to write a book nowadays. Everybody says it's hard. It's really not hard. It's really easy.
Okay.
So
I'm going to hit you up for that then.
Yeah, we can talk about that at the end. So I want to thank you for going over and joining. I love this type of model and everything else. So we're going to let you go over and close out the floor this way. So you can talk a little bit more about what you do and what a client goes over and looks like. You want to give a call to action or a quote. And when we're done, we go over and close it out. So thank you for going over and joining us. And the last part of the floor is yours.
Yeah. So for me, I definitely want to keep serving veterans and anyone who have served their community or service providers like military, firefighters, police. I feel like there is a huge need for us to continue not only to lift ourselves up, but to keep serving and lifting each other up. And I've been on a mission to really help the veteran community to stifle this suicide and everything that's going on within the community. So definitely reach out to me at any time. My email is there, nobelove at proton and no.b.lov3 at proton.me. And for being on Daniel's podcast, if you reached out from here, definitely I don't do free sessions anymore. But for anyone who sends a code word superhero, I would definitely give you a free session. All right. So that's the biggest thing. And as always, continue to know yourself, be yourself, love yourself, so you too can soar above your mountains. Bless.